So today with me here is my friend Amjad. He is both a lawyer and a law consultant inside the UAE, owns a law firm here. We actually met in college, so we know each other, going back like 7, 8 years now. Quite a long time. I was exhausted, passed out on a beanbag, and I look over half glance, and there's this like giant dude just jacked out of his mind. And then I say hi, we get to talking, and then yeah, that's how we essentially met. We both met in college, and then ironically, we both ended up starting our own businesses in the UAE. So, would you say that's an accurate representation of how
It is, but I wouldn't say 8 years. I think 10 years.
10 years?
Yeah,
It's quite a. I don't know. I completely lost track of time. Time's moving
I
so
think that
quickly.
was it's a COVID effect.
Oh yeah, you delete the 2 years
Yes,
and you did
exactly.
nothing basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it was also interesting because we went to the same university. We started our own businesses roughly a decade later, but we also made a very conscious decision that our businesses are going to be catering towards SMEs. I had my own reasons on doing that. But actually, I think we had similar reasons why we did that, but maybe you could explain yours.
It's a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons I started my business to help small to medium entrepreneurs, small to medium enterprises as well. Mainly because I feel like they don't get the proper service. People roughly our age,
Yeah.
when they start their own businesses, they usually contact law firms for guidance about regulations and compliance in the UAE. And they don't give them the time of the day.
And on top of that, if a large business is not structured in a way to be profitable while dealing with smaller businesses, then they're not going to care about smaller businesses.
No.
Whereas I think when we sat down and did the math and said, okay, I'm willing to compromise on this level of profitability, make sure that I can take care of myself, my employees, my business, I can still make a very profitable business that ends up providing the appropriate service for the sector. And yeah, it's a similar experience, or it's very strange where these people sometimes pay as much as a large corporation, but they still don't get the same amount of service that they're expecting from like a law firm or an accounting firm or whatever type of firm. And why do you think that is? Why do you think there's such a service gap between large corporate structures and small businesses, even if when the money incentives are more or less similar?
I think it's mainly because most law firms, they just want to get as much clients as possible, right? And unfortunately, if you don't know the lawyer or you don't know someone who works in that law firm, we will barely get the proper service that you need.
Exactly.
They're excited. There is a lot of investments happening, so they want to get as much clients as possible. So who do they pay attention to? To the big corporates, right?
Yes.
And they barely pay attention to the small
Yeah, small-
businesses or medium businesses.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's every law firm in Dubai. I'm saying quite few
Yeah.
law firms.
Give that
Yeah.
personal touch where you know the person that you're dealing with that's managing your case,
Exactly.
that's reachable.
Exactly.
A lot of the times, what you don't see in the back end of these businesses is that there's this, rotating escalator of people that are working around a singular case or account, and it's not one person, and it leads to a lot of information fragmentation and things being missed. Whereas I think that I could probably, if you sat me down, gun to my head, name every single one of my clients and people who run them, I could probably do it.
This is how it should be.
And I think that's really, there's something special about that where I know, okay, if someone were to ask me, okay, what was happening here? I can completely recall from start to finish where we spoke, what we agreed upon, what the end deliverables ended to be, the end result towards what had happened. And I think that that's a level of service that kind of died out with mass market services, but it's interesting to see us trying to bring back a level of personal interactions with our businesses. And I think a lot of people miss that too.
Yeah, I actually need to add a little point. I feel like a lot of people do the same exact mistakes. They want income, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you do that? By getting as much clients as possible.
Yes.
Okay, what about the quality of the service?
Yeah.
Haven't you realized that a lot of companies, their services has been degraded? And
Yes.
it's because they're going after the money, but not after the service.
Yes.
Which is in my firm, this is not what I do.
Yes.
I try my best to provide the best service possible because, again, maybe our career is slightly different. Mine is a little bit more sensitive. So the client needs to feel that I am with him 24/7. I am behind his back. I'm helping him. I'm catering him. I'm listening to him. So these stuff that unfortunately not a lot of firms provide to, especially new investors or investors that are decided to choose Dubai as their home.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I've worked with quite a number of lawyers, and what I've noticed is I work more like a lawyer than an accounting firm because we're also tend to be very 24/7, going back and forth constantly with people. And I think I feel like lawyers are just constantly working against the clock or against the time or submissions where details and every little arguments matter, and that leads to you need to be on top of your game for everything you do.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, the smallest of things escalate and snowball. Just some of the stories you've told me about little details here and there being missed, causing complete flips in a case, were rather shocking. So, I guess like the follow-up question would be: do you have any interesting cases that you could refer to or talk about right now that would be educational?
I cannot give you details, but all what I can say is I had one consultation where the client asked me, I drafted the contract, not him, the other party, drafted the contract. We agreed on certain provisions to be happen. However, the other party did not comply, therefore I stopped. So I asked him to give me the contract. I took a look at the contract and I'm reading it. The contract sounded like it was drafted by an AI.
Okay, so they used like robots to
Okay.
draft the whole thing?
Exactly. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you how did I find out. I sat down with both parties, my client, the other party, and then I spoke to him. I told him, we need to find a way to reach into a solution or, maybe a settlement so that we won't have to move forward with the court. And it was like, no, it's okay. I don't care. I'm going to go to the court. My contract is airtight. And then I looked at him and I was like, okay, have you seen the area of jurisdiction?
Yeah.
Or the jurisdiction clause in your contract?
Yeah.
He was like, yes. Okay, have a look at it. He looks at it. It says arbitration.
Mm.
There's a huge difference between arbitration and Dubai courts.
Okay.
Arbitration is a lot more expensive
Yes.
than Dubai courts.
Yes.
So if you're gonna file your case through
Yeah.
Dubai courts and then there's an arbitration clause,
Yes.
the judge are not going to continue with their case. He's going to close down the case because he's gonna refer to the arbitration clause. So you're gonna have to go through the arbitration, which is gonna cost a lot of money. And I was trying to explain that to him. He was like, no, this is not what it says. He was arguing with me about the clause.
Okay.
What is right there. And I told him, maybe you should pay attention about how you draft and what kind of clauses that you add into the contract. Otherwise, you're gonna.
And you suspect that he used AI to make this draft?
I'll tell you why. Because there was a certain clause where, in the end, it says insert date.
Okay, so it was clearly some sort of template that he was using.
Exactly. And because I have seen a lot of contract from clients telling me, hey, I drafted this contract. What do you think? Then I took a look at it and it's an AI. And I told him, the same mistake over and over is the area of jurisdiction.
Yes.
Is arbitration clause.
Yes.
Why are you adding arbitration clause?
So you suspect
I'm not against arbitration clause.
Yes, but it's ineffective for what they're looking
It's
for.
inefficient and it's very costly.
Yes. So from your understanding, there's just so much misinformation being spread throughout these templates or these AI models. And what's crazy about people using AI for very sophisticated or high risk or high liability services is that a lot of the times you don't know the source of the data for this information. So you could literally have a thread where you post a template and someone posting, oh, this is not relevant anymore, this is outdated, and that won't get picked up, but they'll pick up the template. So it's still leading to
I feel like every small to medium business downfall is the fact that they are depending on AI blindly. I'm not against using AI.
Yes.
Actually, it's very, very
Useful.
efficient and it's very useful, right? But again, you need to understand that each country has its own custom, has its own laws, has its own regulation. AI may be aware of the laws, right? But it's
Yes,
not aware of the custom. The custom
exactly.
is something that no one in construction, for example, right? How people deal with each other, how the contractor deal with the subcontractor.
Yes,
These stuff are not written by the law, but it's known for ages. This is what's
yes.
called custom.
And being in the Middle East, it's such a relationship based country, or such a relationship based
Exactly,
culture, where
exactly.
a lot of and there's some comfort in that, right? You know that when you're with someone and your relationship is solid, they're not going to take advantage of that or bleed you out, etc. But at the same time, finding someone reliable that you can form a relationship is the tricky part, and you need to be savvy enough to decide or kind of suss out who is someone that you can trust and someone who you
I
can't
kind of
trust.
disagree with you on that point.
Okay.
So yes, it's very important to do business with someone that you trust, someone who's reliable, someone who's efficient. But sometimes that trust, if you don't have the proper agreements, the proper contracts, the proper invoices,
Yeah.
it's not going to get you anywhere.
I mean that's the lawyer in you talking
Yeah.
right then and there, trust but verify. But yeah, which makes complete sense because you deal with a lot of scrutiny or cases where people have taken these things to someone's advantage and then use them against them in law, correct?
I have seen brothers
Okay.
losing their relationship because they were partners in a company, and over a slight issue about the finance, they went crazy.
I mean, it's usually always the money. I mean, at least all of the cases that I've seen of requests for internal audits or disclosures have always been, okay, where did the money go? It's never anything else.
It's obviously the money, right?
Yes.
But again, it's also the lack of protection. Um, some people here, I wouldn't say here specifically, but in the Middle East in general, right? When two family members want to get into business and you suggest that, okay, how about we make a contract? Oh, no, 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 no. That's not appropriate. That's not appropriate. I trust him. That's
Yeah.
not appropriate. It's wrong. I know that you trust him, right? But we are human. We make mistakes. We are forgetful.
Yeah.
So at least you have to have a reference to go back to, just in case if things didn't go your way.
Yeah, and sometimes there's very simple things you could do, even if you don't have a formal contract, even pre-existence of the business. You could structure the shares that it has a default way of application that goes in the way you're intended, and then you could formalize contracts later. Money is always such a difficult conversation, especially when you're having it with family, because there's this implication that your family members would or wouldn't do anything to you. But at the end of the day, it's always better to be safe and sorry, and then make it
Absolutely.
very clear on what each person's getting out of the interactions.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
especially when you're pooling a large sum of money together. I mean, it's not un it's not shocking for a person to invest up to 500,000 dirhams, 1 million dirhams in a family business together because they know it well or think they can pull it off. But as soon as they need to liquidate or disperse the money that was gained, then, well, you paid for this and I paid for that, and tit for tat.
Exactly. See, the main issue about any family oriented business is that, like you mentioned earlier, they just inject money.
Yeah.
And when you don't track that money,
Yes.
right, this is where the problem starts to happen. Like you said, yes, one guy just invested $500,000, 500,000 dirhams, right? And the other did the same, maybe a little bit high, a little bit less. And then once there's a conflict, they're gonna start, hey,
Yeah.
this is how much I paid. Oh, no, 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 this is how much I paid. And then this is where the issue starts to happen.
Yes.
So this is why having a contract, that doesn't mean you don't trust that person.
Yes.
You're just tracking where that money went, right?
Yeah.
And again, you have a reference to go back to.
Yes.
Not always having a contract is a bad thing.
Yeah.
I always believe that good contract prevents bad courtroom.
That's true. And even what was funny is I was opening up kind of this retirement interactive broker account where you very simple invest in kind of index funds, etc., for your retirement savings. everyone should do it. It's pretty regular. But what was funny was the salesperson for the index funds that I was dealing with. She kept on insisting I get a prenup. So get a prenup, otherwise your wife will get this much a year. If you were to get divorced, I'm like, how many divorces has this lady? I was, keep in mind at that point I was single, and this was like a couple of years ago. So she kept on insisting on getting a prenup before I marry anyone for my retirement account in several countries. Which is an interesting question. You're a lawyer. Did you get a prenup?
I declined to answer.
Okay, so okay.
No, I didn't. I didn't do a prenup.
No,
but
I mean,
I trust my wife.
yeah, same. I didn't get a prenup either.
Yeah.
No, what is she gonna get? Half of nothing? Like, no. It's just funny. That's my favorite joke, is because when I did get married, I didn't start my business yet. We kind of combined assets together, and I think like, it's different when you're coming into a marriage with a lot of money. But if you're both young and starting out and you're building things together, then it should be like spread over the things you've made.
You know, I feel like people are just, they think that, oh, I have assets. Okay, yes, you have properties, you have money in the bank, you have expensive cars, but what's your real asset?
Yeah.
Is having a supportive wife, for example, right?
Yeah.
Having decent family.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if you know that your choice is right, you wouldn't have to do any prenup whatsoever.
That's true. And also, I found that like pouring assets together actually strengthens a marriage as well. Like, oh, we bought that house together. We bought that car together. These are things that we've built together.
Exactly.
And if anything were to happen to me, I have someone that is directly tied to that can take care of those things. Or if I'm ill, or if there's something that goes wrong, you always have your spouse that can kind of manage things while you're away, which is another reason I don't particularly think that, having your wife just be a housewife anymore is like, I think women are more capable than that. Like, believe it or not, my wife knows pretty well how my business functions, and I keep on saying, well, good thing you're here, so if I die, you can kind of keep things going.
Exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it's interesting having your spouse being completely involved in the inner processes of your business. I think that's something new that our generation's doing. I don't know too many people that are doing it.
I've seen quite few people.
Yeah.
Not our age. Let's say our parents' age, where they are not just a husband or wife.
Yeah.
They are life partners, right?
Yeah.
Now I usually always recommend that, we have to do a contract, you have to protect your rights, right? But
Sure.
then when it comes to marriage, I feel like it really comes down to who did you choose?
Yes.
Right? So it's very important. And who did you choose, and on the long run or throughout the marriage, right? How is the relationship going? Are you keep dividing your assets? Or you keep saying, oh, this is mine, this is yours, right?
Yeah.
Or is everything combined? Because like it or not, whatever you buy, it's not only yours anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you're going to be obligated to share it with your wife.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
And I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm saying it, choose your life partner.
Yeah. And be very selective in who you decide to go with in the end.
Exactly, absolutely.
And I think that, selectivity is something that is kind of coming in, which is why the marriage rates are probably lower now than they've ever been. But at the same time, I don't think that our generation is going to go past like kind of these, people like to call them like cheaper to keeper marriages, where it's like, you just are with the same person because you're miserable because you didn't pick the person you truly loved or whatever.
It could be. I still think that, see, the divorce rate is very high. Okay. And the reason behind it is people just are too quick to get married, right? They don't really see the person's true color.
Yeah.
Especially in the Middle East, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I think like the turnover rate for marriage can be as low as like 3 months or 9 months at times, to where people meet and then get married. It's very quick.
It's actually way less. So it could be, for example, I have a guy who lives in the Middle East and his mother, oh, I've met this girl, she's nice.
Yeah.
So they all go out and they see each other, and then within the following week they're engaged.
Yes.
Right? And keep in mind that they're not going to reveal their true colors because they're still wearing a mask.
I've seen crazier than that, man. I've seen in Pakistan, like I've seen people that met their wives on the wedding day. Like they did not communicate or talk. They're just like, I don't know, my parents just picked a girl, and then I'm gonna show up.
Maybe to survive back then, but now it doesn't really work anymore.
No, I don't think so.
Because the world is evolving.
Yes.
And back then we didn't have social media. We didn't have the technology that we're having right now that kind of affects our lives, right?
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to do the same thing you used to do it, or your parents used to do it, or your grandparents used to do it.
Yeah, no, it's a crazy world. I think we're getting a bit off tangent. Maybe we should talk about law stuff more. Yeah. So maybe I'll start with. So let's just say that you've started an SME inside the UAE.
Yeah.
What are the core tenets as a lawyer that you'd recommend that people do to protect themselves as a business in case they're ever sued or litigated? What do you recommend would be the first things you do?
So you have to choose the proper company structure, right?
Okay.
Whether if it's a joint venture or an LLC.
Yeah.
I mostly recommend LLC to certain activities. So LLC will help protect your personal assets in case if your company ever got sued, your assets are protected, but the company's assets will be the things in question. You got to choose the proper name, and once you do, you got to register it in the intellectual property.
Yes.
Right? So if you're planning on going big, opening up many branches, right, you're going to have the proper legal structure so that when you level up, you don't see any halt that's going to drag you down, right?
Yeah.
So yes, register your not the trade license, the
trademark.
The trademark.
Yes.
And your trade name, part of the process of having a successful forming a company. A lot of people, they don't pay attention to that, and they say, okay, I'm just a small business.
Yes.
Right? So who's gonna steal my logo?
Yeah.
And who's gonna steal my ideas?
Well,
right?
you'd be surprised. You might just have, especially with the advent of people being able to clip or record your videos and pretend to be you.
Exactly. I'll give you a simple example. Dubai chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Who was invented by a woman that was pregnant and she was giving chocolate, right? She didn't know that the chocolate would go big. But I believe if she registered the patent which is the mixture of the chocolate, the kunafa, and the pistachio, right? And her trademark, I'm pretty sure she registered her trademark because no one is using that trademark.
Yeah.
But everyone uses the Dubai chocolate in the same ingredient.
Yeah.
So this is just an example.
But she didn't patent the actual ingredients or anything. She just patented.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But based on every single chocolate company copying the same exact recipe,
she could have protected herself a bit more by
exactly.
That's kind of tricky because like you don't know how, I think that, well, of course we don't know her, but I'm sure she didn't predict the level of success that she imagined.
Exactly, which is a lot of people who started their business, they don't really predict the level of success, right? You just give it a try, and especially people our age, we just give it a try, and then we see if it's going to work or not, right?
Yes.
And most of the time it works because we kind of have this different ideas from our parents and grandparents, which kind of cope with the technology and the evolving world that we live in right now. So if you have the proper legal structure and the legal protection, you'll be able to survive.
Yes.
And not just survive, you'll be able to elevate and evolve without questioning and without worrying about any legal exposure or any legal issues on the long run whatsoever.
It also helps with unified branding because you could just stand behind your brand and spread it pretty quickly and easily across borders as well, and kind of show and help you facilitate that growth. It is tricky building a brand from the ground up because you don't know which direction to take. I think that I really did enjoy the branding process of creating the business because you get to do something different or unique? Like, what would you recommend as well? Of course, we're not marketing people on how to brand businesses, whatever. But what was your thought process for making your brand or your colors or etc.?
Okay. So you're talking about the logos and
Just
company's
generally,
profile.
yeah, it's just general. That's the most fun part of any business, making like the logo.
Actually, my wife helped me with that.
Yeah, I made mine with my wife. Yeah.
She told me, and I agree with her, that you need to choose colors that are confident, colors that are welcoming,
Yeah.
and make the client feels welcomed and protected and professional, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of a difficult mix to choose, especially when it comes to choosing colors and logos, right? And she's right, because I want the client to feel that I'm going to take care of you the moment you get into law firm till the point where we achieve the target. Right?
Yeah.
So this is how I came up with the logo. This is how I came up with the design, and I got a lot compliments.
Yeah.
A lot of compliments in the long run.
I did the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I picked my company's colors are pink and white. And the reason I went purely on gut instinct, I was like, majority of my staff are women. Like, like,
okay.
yeah, like 90%. It's just me, the only dude, and these other women that control my lives, and, basically. And I was like, okay. And all the law firms were like blue, not law firms, sorry. All the accounting firms were like blue and green, blue and green. It was just a sea of blue and green, and I just like, nope, I'm gonna be pink.
Yeah, pink. It's yeah. I was actually, when I saw your company logo, and I was like, oh, why is it pink?
Well, I guess that's
But
not.
it wasn't like a color where I was shocked or bothered by it. But
I think that I think the reason why it's pink, it's because I think pink's a softer color.
yeah,
And, if we sat across each other, you're this big muscular guy and I'm this smaller, less muscular guy. And I think that the softness of not necessarily like how I interact or I talk to people or how we are as a business kind of comes across in the logo as a more like welcoming, gentle business. So that's why it's pink. That, and it's mostly because I hire mostly women because they just happen to be qualified. So in your perspective, how do you see the laws in the UAE changing, or what do you see any trends towards any transformational change in the future of laws inside the UAE? Do you have any insight into what do you predict will happen in the future?
Well, the basic changes that we have seen recently is the fact that now companies can be 100% owned by expats.
Yeah.
Which is a great move to motivate investors to come and live here.
Yep.
Following by that, the introduction of the green card,
Yes.
golden visa.
Yes.
Which gave the investor some sense of stability and home, where it doesn't feel like, oh, every 2 years he's gonna face the consequences.
turmoil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now he has a 10-year visa where he can just live and stay for as long as he can. Following by that is how everything can now be done through online channels.
Yes.
Right? So if you want to get a Power of Attorney done, you can do it online. If you want to get your trade license, you can do it online. If you want to renew your visa, you can do it online. If you want to renew your driver license, you can do it online. So all of these stuff there make it.
So now that there's been this technological transformation over hearings, so are the hearings also done online completely?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
certain cases, criminal cases, it has to be you have to be present in court. But every other case, the plaintiff and the defendant can join it online.
I guess the goal is to avoid going towards court. From what you've told me, is that there's a lot of settlements, or are
It's
there
not going. You're talking about the online part,
or just generally when you're dealing with a client that has an issue or a law dispute?
Yeah.
Do you encourage settlements, or do you prefer pursuing? What do you think is generally the?
Okay, I encourage, especially from small to medium business, to have an airtight contracts.
Okay.
Because, like I said, good contracts prevents bad courtrooms.
Yeah.
So if you have a well-drafted contracts, is going to protect you from a lot of legal exposure throughout the run. Because let's put it that way, lawsuit is a gamble.
Yeah.
Okay, you can have all the facts, you can have all the evidence, but as soon as you file the lawsuit, you don't know what the other party have against you,
Okay.
right? So it could turn things upside down, and within a blink of an eye, you could lose the lawsuit.
So
Now, I'm not saying this happens in every lawsuit. I'm just saying that lawsuit is a gamble.
So you're saying that it's better to be preemptive. So they come to you, they kind of understand all the points of exposure, you draft contracts that are airtight for all the points of exposure, and then they go about their business. So essentially, when people come to you with a filed case or a potential case, there's already something wrong, or there's
Exactly. There's already something wrong. Either a case filed against them, or they're filing a case against them. And sometimes, if you're going to claim a certain amount of money for your business, right, then you have no other choice but to file the lawsuit because the other person is defaulting on payments.
Yes.
Right? So again, lawsuits it's a step that it needs to be done.
It's
right?
inevitable.
It is inevitable. But if you have a well-structured contract from the beginning,
Yeah.
it's not going to affect you negatively
Yeah.
on the long run. And if you thought about it, it's actually cost efficient because lawsuits they're pretty costly. It gets pretty costly. You got to keep in mind that if it's a civil claim, at some point throughout the hearing or throughout the case, the judge will definitely assign an auditor or an accounting expert where he looks at the papers and the invoices. Then he decides who has the right and who's not, which takes quite some time from the litigation process, and it's quite expensive. It depends on how much money you're claiming or what's the value of your claim.
And let's just say that a ruling's gone in your favor, your client has been found to be the wronged party and they have to be paid back their settlement. Are the law fees also charged to the other party, or is it just paid by the client to you directly? How does the compensation for lawyers work in this region?
So we're talking about the fees for
lawyers,
lawyer,
yeah.
right? It really comes down to every law firm. So some law firms they take a success fee.
Okay.
Some law firms they take down payment, then another installment in the mid of the litigation, then a success fee in the end. So there is no a specific fee structure.
Okay.
Just that every law firm structure their fees according to their needs and according to the process and according to the case.
But the fees that are paid, is it possible that the guilty party ends up paying the law firm as well?
Not always.
Okay.
Not always.
So this is completely dependent on the case.
Yes.
All right. And what primary types of cases do you handle? Like, do you have a specialization or do you cover a large base of things?
I mostly cover corporate, from all the way from starting a new business to regulation and compliance, of course, consultation, and then real estate. Anything that has to do with investments, I basically cover. So let's put corporate is considered an investment, which is opening up a company. Buying a real estate is a investment. And what comes with corporate, you have civil and you have criminal.
Yeah.
So let's say if you run a company and your employee is stealing money, right?
Yes.
That's a crime, embezzlement.
Yeah.
Right. So you should be aware of these laws and regulations, because corporate is not just about, oh, I'm going to sign a contract, I'm going to draft a contract, I'm going to give consultation about how to set up your business. No, it's a lot more than that. You have the labor where you hire and fire employees, so it has to be done through timely manner and through the proper UAE labor laws and regulations, as well as the criminal. So you got the criminal part where, as I mentioned earlier, if an employee is embezzling money, this is a felony.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do all of these. We do criminal, we do commercial, we do civil, we do real estate. I used to do family dispute, but
Yeah.
I
Why
can.
did you stop doing family disputes?
It's it gets pretty intense.
I can
Okay?
imagine.
It gets pretty
Yeah.
intense because especially at this part, you're not just a lawyer,
Yeah.
you are actually a therapist.
Yeah.
So a client is going to come in and
Completely emotionally distraught.
exactly, and if you're not strong enough, right, it's going to take a hit on you, right?
Mm.
At a certain point, I had one friend who's also a lawyer, and most of what he does is just doing family disputes.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm asking him, man, when are you getting married? He was like, I don't want to get married. I
Oh,
was
so
like, why?
he just saw so
Yes,
much.
exactly. He was like, man, I have seen people, they live together for 20, 15 years, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And over the slightest argument, they're willing to let everything go,
Hmm.
which is,
So-
it's intense. Yeah.
Whereas I guess the comfortable part about dealing with companies or LLCs is that there's a layer of protection already pre-built in. At the end of the day, the
Yes.
worst that could happen is the company goes bankrupt and the shareholders need to
Yeah,
pay
but
out
this is
with
not how I think because I don't want my clients to go bankrupt.
it. Yeah, of course
Yeah.
not. But I'm just saying, yes, is it like, is it bad? Yes, but is it worse than your nuclear family being destroyed? I wouldn't say so. Like, I don't know, if my company just randomly blew up tomorrow, I think I'd be fine. Like, I think you'd still have something to come home to, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, family is important.
So, what do you think are the major pitfalls for SMEs that are being established inside the UAE jurisdiction? Like, what are the major things they need to worry about or focus on to make sure that they're protected?
There's a lot of things that they should worry and they should make sure that it align with the compliance and the regulations of the UAE. Of course, the company structure, the VAT and the 9% corporate tax registration is very important. And most and foremost is drafting contract using AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to avoid using AI for
See,
important.
like I said, I there's actually one guy that I met, and he told me this quote, and I believe in it.
Okay.
He said, don't be afraid of using AI, but don't let someone else use AI and take over your business, right?
Yeah.
So what does he mean by that? I could use AI, right?
Yes.
I can blindly ask AI to draft me a contract,
That's
and I can
correct.
just copy and use it, and that's it. I'm done. But then, what's really written inside this contract? Is it something that is going to be helpful? Is it something that goes with the regulations and the UAE compliance? That goes with the UAE customs?
It's unlikely to be contextual to exactly what this.
Exactly. So I'm not against using AI, but just make sure that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know
And
what you're doing.
do you think that you'll incorporate more AI into your personal workflows? Or right now, as far as I've used AI, has been very simplistic templates, very simplistic. And then we double and triple check the templates if ever used. I don't think we use it at all for any internal accounting or anything like that. So I think right now it's just how we see it as a glorified Word document generator.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. People keep on encouraging automations. A lot of accounting firms are encouraging automation. So I just don't trust it enough to really implement it in any such level.
I don't use it when it comes to drafting a contract for the following reason, because I'm not going to give AI my personal or my client's personal information. Exactly, right? Because I don't know where these information are going to,
Yeah.
or where is it going to be sold to.
Exactly.
Right? Because again, it's a gray area.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard you try to erase the data, I've actually seen articles about that. You ask AI to delete your personal information, he deletes it.
Yeah.
But then when you ask him questions and you kind of drag him into
Back to that old information.
he's gonna bring it back.
Yeah.
So it's
They don't really
very
delete.
risky.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I would never put my clients in such legal exposure or data leak where I'm just being very very negligent that I'm just putting their personal information on AI. Again, it's helpful when you come with plan and you need him to guide you through this plan, right? Let's say business management, right? You want to manage your law firm. So you kind of get ideas about how you could do so. So AI actually very helpful when it comes to that, right? Marketing strategy, right? So he can actually build you like a big marketing strategy about how you could promote yourself, you know, how you promote your business, how to deal with clients, for example, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it is very helpful. You should take him as a guidance, right? As a research tool, because I'll tell you right now, it's much better than Google.
Yeah.
Right. I remember back then when you used to do research.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was just like listed sources, verified sources, find all the information where it's from. Exactly.
So with just one click,
yeah,
you can just get the listed resources, and they're actually true.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what I think what's AI is good for, and this is what I recommend everyone to use AI for.
I suspect in the future when white collar workers, in order to kind of protect their services, they may not post as much information online or not be as open in forums or provide information where the data could be scrapped. So do you think that more consultants or more professionals are going to keep things closer to the chest, not say everything online or mention as much of their work online in case it's scrapped for AI purposes?
Yeah, but I think it's too late now because AI is an artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
He basically evolves every day.
Yeah.
Maybe when we reach to that point where we stop sharing information, AI is going to have every information that
is
possibly
could
handle. Exactly, right? So I think it's too late to withhold any information. See, again, I am not against AI.
Yeah.
Actually, I feel it's a very good tool when it comes to managing your business.
Yes.
Even day-to-day life, right? But there's a downside or there's a con to every single tool, right?
Yeah.
It's like a knife.
Yeah.
So a knife is good for what? You know, cutting your food, chopping off steak, but it could also be used at different
as a weapon
purposes.
In a criminal case.
Exactly. This is the same thing with AI, right?
Yeah.
I remember back in early 90s, 1990s, where people were so scared about the internet and they used to complain, oh, you know, internet is going, our jobs are going to be gone, blah, blah, blah.
But it just created new jobs.
Exactly. It made life
much better.
Much better, right?
Yeah.
So if you have any relatives who used to live overseas, it was very difficult to communicate with them. But then thanks to the internet, it's now very easy. It made the world much
more connected.
Smaller, exactly, and more connected. So this is what's going to happen with AI.
Yeah.
You can actually create a lot more businesses because a lot of people, they have the business ideas, but they don't know how to implement it.
How to execute.
So this is where you could use AI.
It's a tool for the ideas guy.
Exactly.
Speaking of businesses and ambition, I think that the one way that we contrast, and in many ways we're similar, but the one biggest difference is that you have much larger ambitions for your firm, whereas I think that I would remain a boutique accounting firm that manages maybe X number of clients and that's about it. Maybe have 3-4 people work with me. But why do you have this grand ambition? Where do you see it going? And what is your end goal for your business?
My end goal is I want to be the best lawyer with the best law firm in Dubai. This is my ambition. And I feel like it's achievable.
I think because there's such an open ground and there's such open market share and the definition of being the best law firm in the country. Well, I guess that could vary, but it's we both know what we're talking about. It's about having the largest and best clients, having the best service deliverable, and being very ingrained into the society. And I think that's why UAE is such a unique place right now. There, you know, people keep on talking about the American dream, but there is
no,
because you've been to the US.
The American dream is dead.
Really?
Yeah, it's dead.
Nail in the
very
coffin.
long time ago. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Do you feel like that spirit has been somewhat transferred towards the UAE?
So from a lawyer perspective, right, who help investors setting up their businesses, not just in Dubai, but anywhere around the world. Okay. As an investor, do you think it's a good idea to invest in the US? No.
Yeah.
Why? You have a lot of taxation system, IRS. It's crazy. I'm not saying that the US has a small market. US is one of the largest market. Exactly, right? So yes, if you have a business in the US, it can really take off, right? But what other than taxes? Do you have safety in the US? No, you don't. Okay, I'm not against paying taxes, okay? You pay taxes. What are you getting in return? Are you getting safety? No.
Not particularly.
Are you getting healthcare?
No.
Health insurance? No. Okay. Are you getting a proper infrastructure?
For laws or litigation? Not particularly, because it's one of the most, sued each other.
Exactly.
Like sue happy country in the world.
Exactly. No. Why do you think a lot of investors are attracted to Dubai and they come and move here?
The lack of bureaucracy and pretty simplistic, straightforward business operations.
It's very simple. Process is very easy. It's seamless process. Safety is top notch. You could actually live the lavish lifestyle that investors wish for. Because at the end of the day, you're an investor, right?
Yeah.
So you want to show off, not show off in a bad way, but you want to feel like you're earning money.
Or at the very least, be comfortable with
Exactly. So when you buy your expensive car or your expensive watch, you're not going to worry that throughout the day, it might get stolen somehow, right? Unlike living in the US, where you're constantly worried that your
assets are
basic car might get stolen, right?
Yeah.
So your assets are much protected here, right? Yes, there's taxes here, but how much? It's just 9% corporate tax,
minimal.
And you have to meet a certain criteria.
You know what? One of the things that I find is pretty expensive everywhere else, well, at least in the US, not compared to here, is I had a client who was kind of going on like a first world problem tangent where he's like, oh, I can't afford a boat in the US anymore because the boat insurance was too high compared to the boat insurance here. So, it doesn't stop at cars. If you want a yacht, you could have that, it's cheaper here too. So
Exactly. And insurance in the US in general is very expensive.
Yeah.
And you're not getting the service that you're paying for in return.
That's true. This is some of the best service in
the
world, essentially. And I also have a hard time traveling because of it, because I go anywhere and I'm like, it's
your standards are high now.
I wouldn't even call it a standard. It's just, I don't know. You go to a place and people don't seem to care as much or put as much effort or that detailed effort. And keep in mind, this attitude permeates throughout everything, right? When it's law or it's accounting or whatever. I don't think there are any other, I work with these other jurisdictions sometimes, specifically the EU and the UK.
Yeah.
And the speed at which I'm dealing with other firms is so slow compared to the life here. Like the delivery of service, I'm like, these people would not last a day inside Dubai. Not even close. No. And the people that came from other countries, you find them picking up that pace very quickly and stay at that pace. Yeah. Also, that burns them out, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I think we're fine. I think we've managed it well.
No, we're good. I think at a certain point we got used to it.
Yes.
Right? Because again, everyone is providing a good service, right?
Yes.
So in order for you to keep up and to survive, so you're gonna at least have to provide the same exact service, if not higher quality, right?
Well, and I also believe in the perception of work hard, but also rest hard.
Exactly.
Learn to just really take your time off and sleep and rest and take care of yourself and, make sure that you're healthy throughout that whole time as well.
Absolutely.